You are welcome to Soul Food and Smooth 98.1, where we love music, we love life, we love you, we love your health and wellness. We want you to be in one piece, very whole, and that's why we talk about this every Saturday from 8 till 8:30. My name is Oluwaseun, and you know it's a pleasure to have you here. Number one, we're streaming live on YouTube, so you can go to our YouTube channel and see my face as well as that of my guest who is in the studio. We need to raise the awareness about limb loss because April is the month of limb loss awareness, and to understand what it is, the impact, the effect, how to recover from it, and understand better the experience of those who have lost a limb or the other. So that's what we're doing for the next 30 minutes. And you know that the WhatsApp line is always open to take your messages. You can also use the live chat option on YouTube. So youtube.com/smooth 921 FM Lagos. Again, youtube.com/smooth 921 FM Lagos. To talk about this topic of understanding limb loss, what it is not, and some other things that is experienced, I do have an advocate as well as an enthusiast and someone who works as the human resource and operations lead of the Irede Foundation. And I believe the Irede Foundation is very big on this. This actually is the mission of the foundation to educate more and to help those who have lost a limb or the other. So please welcome a namesake of mine, Oluwaseun Ayodeji Cole. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good to be here.
Yeah, the first time I think was International
Humanitarian
Humanitarians.
Day.
Yeah, good to have you back. How have you been? What's been up?
Uh, I've been well, been good. It's Limb Loss Awareness Month, so I think that's what has been up.
You know, before we even get into the definition of limb loss for the sake of someone to have the basic knowledge, tell me, how has it been in this journey of advocacy and educating people on it, as well as um, from an experiential point of view, also relating with people?
Mhm.
How has it been?
I think the perspective is changing now. People are more receptive to the advocacy of getting people to be aware of what limb loss is. I think thinking back 5, 10 years ago, people would say, "Oh, this must have been something you did wrong," and all of that. But people are coming to understand that it's not about something you did wrong. It's something
Mm.
that can happen, and people are tilting more into how they can make the society more accessible for people with limb loss and persons with disability in general. So I think,
Okay, so let's get to the basic knowledge then. For someone who has no idea of what it is, chances are again that they have seen these things, but
mhm,
they're not sure of how to put the words to what they have seen and
mhm.
what they might have an idea is. So, how would you describe limb loss?
Okay, so limb loss is the absence or the removal of a limb. So it's the upper limb or lower limb, and I mean upper limb being the hands, and then lower limb being the legs. So it's the removal or absence um, of a limb.
That doesn't just happen.
Yeah, so I use removal and absence intentionally because the reason why limb loss occurs is majorly from traumatic experiences or congenital being that people were born that way without limbs, and traumatic in the sense that it is acquired, be it by a disease or accident. I had my own amputation as a result of an accident, so it's, yeah, pretty much about congenital and traumatic.
See, as we would say to Nigeria, those are big, big English,
Yeah.
right? Congenital. So, break it down.
Okay.
When you say congenital, for the sake of someone who has no idea, what do
Okay.
you mean?
So it's when a child is born
Mm.
without a limb. So I would refer to the story of the founder of the Irede Foundation. She gave birth to her child without the tibia hemimelia. That's the bone in the leg. So As a result of that, she had to then amputate her daughter's leg because there was no way the child would have been able to work without the bone in the leg. So it's congenital, being that it is how the child is born, without a bone or without a limb to function properly.
All right then. And traumatic or as a result
Of
of
an
one thing or the other.
accident,
Yes.
yeah, diabetes, cancer, and yeah, pretty much. I think those things also lead to the removal of a limb.
But generally, aside it being congenital, because there is almost nothing, well, maybe, is there anything that can be done to prevent congenital
So
limb loss?
research is still ongoing. Right now, it's still ongoing. So I won't speak much on that, on the causes of congenital limb deformity. But I know that research, and one of the things Irede Foundation is also focused on, is actually doing the research to see how we can even fix these issues. We've identified issues with traditional bone setters that eventually lead to amputation, which we're managing or trying to get people sensitized about. But for congenital limb deformity, I would just say research is still ongoing to know what the cause really is and how it can be prevented.
With that traditional bone setters that you mentioned, I want to assume you touched the raw nerve for some people. Because let me get into the mind of the lay Nigerian now. How do traditional bone setters cause limb loss in the long run?
So, mismanaged limbs is what leads to amputation in the long run. When somebody goes through maybe a fall or a fracture or something, and the limb is not properly managed, and we're just doing all the I don't know the word for it now. We're just trying to wrap it, put this on it, put that on it, and at the end of the day, it's not healing. The limb starts to decay in itself, and then when they are now going back to the hospital, it's now too late for them to revive the limb. So it then leads to the amputation of the limb. We've seen a number of cases like that, or they were first taken to the traditional bone setters to work on the limb and all of that, and then when they were not healing, they now took it to the hospital, and at that point it was just too late.
I think you have highlighted one of the possible ways that you can prevent limb loss, especially as an adult. So, are there other ways that people can prevent a condition that can warrant limb loss, aside, taking care of your feet?
Yeah, basically, I would say that while traditional bone setters are trying to evolve in how they manage limbs, it's important that we also seek medical guidance, right? Going to the hospital, having an X-ray done, knowing where the issue is in itself, is a key thing that needs to happen. So I would say one of the ways to prevent it is not self-medicating in that sense. If there is an issue, if there is a fall, or there is an accident or something, it's better you just go to the hospital, have an X-ray done, and see what the issue is, and then from there it can then be taken forward than having to manage it on your own. And I would say I don't know, maybe in it's just being careful, being safety conscious, is one of the ways that it can be prevented. I've heard stories of people losing their limbs because of a not safety conscious work environment in that sense, and then something happens and then it leads to a limb loss and all of that. So I think safety, just being safety conscious when you're driving, when you're going out, when you're pretty much.
And I think the diabetes, those who have the condition diabetes as well.
Cancer. Yeah, cancer actually also leads to limb loss. That's just a generic health condition, and it's just being conscious of your health, knowing regular checkups, knowing what you should do, what you shouldn't do, how your body functions on its own, I think is what would help. A lot of times people don't really pay attention to what the body is saying, and it's important that maybe once a year, twice a year, just do a general checkup, know what your your sugar level is, and pretty much just being self-conscious, I think.
Let's talk about limb loss itself, after a person who used to have maybe two upper limbs, lower limbs, has had one or maybe two removed, what's the recovery process like? How do you reintegrate or adjust, or there's no big deal, you go back to doing what you used to do?
For some people, it's not usually that easy to just bounce back to life. I mean, losing a limb is like losing a part of who you are, losing yourself, and it's a process. I would say it's not something that people just wake up and say, okay, yes, it has happened, I'm moving on, and just living my life. Yeah, it's usually a process because there is that grief that, oh, I can't be this person, and we still have issues of societal acceptance with respect to limb loss and persons with disability in general, right? People don't see beyond the disability. Um, for example, I am first judged by my disability before you know what I can do, because you're seeing me as a person with disability. You don't know me, but because you see that I'm a person with disability, you're saying, oh, she might not be able to do this, she might not be able to do that, right? And I think it's a process for rehabilitation on its own. It's a process, right? From mental rehabilitation to physical rehabilitation to social interactions. In that sense, it is a process. Basically, we start with getting the mindset of whoever is involved ready. Like, you need to know that, okay, it is not the end of the world. Some people, when they have limb loss, they think, oh, my life is over, and I can't move on anymore. Who would marry me? And all of those concerns, which are very valid, but I think getting yourself to the mental state of, regardless of my disability, I can do, right, is one of the important things for rehabilitation. And then there is the physical rehabilitation, where we advise people to use prosthetic limbs and walking aids in general, and just to help them. Um, it is not going to be like the original limb, but it's something that would help you be independent. A lot of times when people lose their limbs, they have to depend on their families, their caregivers, and limb loss actually affects it's not just the person that is affected in that sense. It affects their families, it affects their communities, because we've seen cases of a mother who cannot go to work because she has to take care of her child who has lost a limb, right? So by the physical rehabilitation, when you provide the child a limb, the child is able to then do some things independently, and the mother is able to move on with her own life. Her life does not have to pause because her child has a limb loss, in that sense. So the physical rehabilitation is a lot. Getting to know how to work with a prosthetic limb, it's a lot. There's the first fitting when you're given the prosthetic limb. There's the second fitting. There's then the gait training, where you practice how to work with a prosthetic limb. And I think the social rehabilitation is now getting the affected person to integrate with the society. So that's why you'd see us pushing for inclusive education in mainstream schools, so that people with disabilities don't feel left out of the society. They don't have to feel like, oh, there is a special school for persons with disability, or there is a special place where you can house these people. It's saying that, oh, the society has to make the schools, the roads, the buildings accessible for people with limb loss, people with persons with disability in general, and not the other way around.
No, each time I hear society, I think, who's the society? Definitely not the buildings.
Yeah,
it's the people. It's you and I. It's the people listening. It's someone who's making a decision. It's someone who has a thought in their mind about how people should be treated. And so, using the word society, how do you think the society can make it easier for someone who has just lost a limb? Or how can they help?
So I think it's in the laws that is being put in place, and not just putting the laws in place, actually implementing the laws, right? In Nigeria, I know that we have a law that says that persons with disability should be employed in organization. I think it's 5%, if I remember correctly. And if you go around organizations today, you would hardly find persons with disability in those organizations. So it starts with, yes, we have these laws on paper, we have these inclusive policies on paper, but how are we implementing it? What are the decisions that we are making to integrate persons with disability or persons with limb loss into the society, right? And I think it's also in the acceptance of knowing that disability is not contagious in that sense. Like limb loss is not contagious. Because I have limb loss and you're sitting right beside me doesn't mean you would have limb loss, right? So we need to understand and be open minded to it, right? And one thing I would always say is people have to look beyond the disability. You can't judge me based on the fact that you see me using a prosthetic leg. It has to be, oh, okay, outside this, what can this person do? What can this person offer? What can this person bring to the table? And how can this person help me? Or how can I even help this person be better at what they do? So it's really in the mindset of the people and also in creating accessible buildings. Um, I imagine somebody with a wheelchair um, coming up the stairs. Obviously, the person can't climb the stairs with the wheelchair. There has to be like an elevator that can. So putting all this, they're very small, small things, but putting all these things in place, I think, is what would help people integrate.
Hmm. Thank you for that food for thought. Still related to that, I hear this many times and I'm not quite sure how to put it into words. So I'll just say it and hopeful that you catch it and know how to answer the question. How do you create a distinction between people being helpful
Mm-hmm.
to people that have a form of disability or the other
Mm-hmm.
and being pitiful?
Okay, I think I get your
Yeah.
question. I think first thing is you have to ask. You can assume that I need help by, okay, you see me trying to work and maybe I'm struggling doing something and you just want to jump in and just say, oh, this, it's kind of intrusive. Or it's a better approach to say, oh, do you need help? Or can I help you with this? If the person then says, it's seeking consent, right? Or if the person then says, oh, yes, please, I need help, then you can proceed to offer help. um, I've seen a couple of times, and I so I would use myself as an example, right? Maybe I'm walking on the street and I'm probably just really sweaty and tired and all of this, and someone's just looking at me, I'm like, sorry. I'm like, I don't get you. Why are you telling me sorry? Like, is everything okay? Right? But I get that perspective of, oh, it's out of pity or out of, oh, wow, and that kind of surprise. But then again, I think when you want to offer help to persons with disability, you should seek their consent first before you offer help. You don't just go there and just assume that they're probably struggling with something and just want to jump in and all of that.
Hmm. All right, that's very enlightening. Thank you for the clarity. If you have any question to ask, you can ask it. 0809 444 0981. Again, WhatsApp line is 0809 444 0981. As we gradually wrap this up, what are some of the, I think you've touched on two or three of it, some of the myths about limb loss that you would like to set straight? I think one of it is what you just mentioned, that you see a person struggling does not mean they immediately need your help or you should pity them and start to do a yeah or something like that. Simply ask. And yeah, what are some of the other myths about limb loss?
Okay. So I think one of the things that we've realized is a myth is people think life after limb loss, and I think I've touched on it earlier, is over. Really, it's not. It's just a phase that happens, and then depending on how you react to it, you can evolve from it, right? So I think that's one of the myth. And the second myth I would say is people think, especially for congenital limb deformity, is maybe the mother or the father has done something bad, and then God is punishing them for it. You know, the mindset that we have here and all of that, it's really not it.
Mm.
Sometimes these things just happen. You don't know the cause. We're still researching, and it's not because, oh, God is punishing somebody for one action they've done in the past. And I think another myth is people with disability or persons with limb loss cannot be useful in the society, right? I believe that we've evolved a bit from that, but it's still something that is still silently, you still see it in the systems that, oh, this person cannot do this thing because, hey, but yeah, um, off the top of my head, I think that's about three that I see that they are met in with limb loss.
All right, thank you, Oluwaseun. And I have a message from Wilson who says, just learn something new. Instead, one should ask first before offering help to someone with disability. You don't assume or act out of pity. Thank you very much, and my regards to the guest. Thank you for your message, Wilson. 0809 444 0981. We're almost done with it. So, final, what will be your recommendations and just those things you would like to say to someone maybe who has lost a limb?
Okay, so I would say it's not the end of the world. It's really not the end of the world. Seek help is what I would say.
What
Seek
kind of
help,
help?
professional help, um, psychological help, whatever help it is that you need, emotional help, right? Seek it. You can't, life is not done alone. You can't do life alone. And surround yourself with people who are able to support you, who are able to still see the potentials in you, regardless of limb loss in that sense, right? A lot of times, people, I get messages from people to say, oh, this person just lost a limb and the person is struggling and is depressed, the person is not going out. And I'm like, it's really not the end of the world. You can live life effectively and have a meaningful life outside limb loss, right? So it's really how one of the ways that I was able to bounce back faster was because I had people around me who were helping me see the possibilities outside limb loss, right? So it's important that you have that community around you of people that will support you. Read a support group that the support groups that you can join for limb loss. I know of a couple. Just be around that people of positive mindset, and that would help you um, come back to life. And I think just trying to find new ways to live, adjusting to um, the new and current situation is there's so many ways that I've had to adjust with respect to how, oh, this is how I used to do things before, now this is how I have to do things, right? So just being able to adjust in that sense, I think is one of the ways that you can, I take a recommendation. And the last thing I would say is focus on what you can do rather than what you can't do. It's really important.
Thank you very much, Oluwaseun, and thank you for all you're doing in educating people on this issue and also strengthening the people as well. All right, that said, what are you doing in commemoration of Limb Loss Awareness Month?
Okay, so there is we have an event called Out on a Limb by the Irede Foundation. One of the things we're doing is to raise awareness and advocate for children living with limb loss and persons
Just
with,
children?
yeah, children and young persons with
Okay.
disability. Um, we are holding this on the 13th of April, Saturday. It's actually a global work, right? And across 60 locations globally, we'll be working to just advocate and say, oh, this is what you should know about limb loss and all of that. So join us. It's going to be at Ikoyi. You can also check our social media handles for more information.
What's your social media?
At the Irede Foundation on Instagram, at the Irede on Twitter, at the Irede Foundation on Facebook. I think if you just Google the Irede Foundation, we will pop up right there, and you can join us on the 13th of April. Um, in Lagos, we have a couple of locations in Ikoyi, in um, Ojota, Ajegule, Yaba, a couple of places. Just head onto our social media, and I believe you'll see all the information that you need to join us on this walk.
Thank you, Oluwaseun, and we wish you all the best with the effort in educating more people about limb loss and those living with disability.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And thank you for listening. Thank you for your messages as well. We continue on the other side with the children at 8:40. Curious Mind is the name of the show, and we'll be having them, some of them in the studio. So you need to join and have fun with us because exploring their minds is always beautiful. After that, it will be Smooth Explorer. I'll be having a chat with my special guest this morning. And you should stay tuned. You are listening to Smooth 98.1.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I hope you're not too cold because I am freezing.
I think I'm now cold. Like, it
I
feels
still
like
have
I'm
2
having.
more hours. Yeah, that cold does that
Yeah.
to you. I still have 2 more hours in the cold.
Oh, 2 more hours.
Yep.
Oh wow. But is it only on Saturdays that you work, or the other days?
Yes, other days, Monday to Friday, 11 to 4.
11 to 4.
Yep. 5 hours in this
Wow.
cold room.
Yes.
What I signed up for.
Really what you signed for. Do you take intern?
Oh, yes, we do. Sure, we do.
How do people apply, or how can people be a part of